Hi, I'm here to talk to you through CTSNet about clinical efficiency. Our group of experts are here assembled to talk to you about how to increase the efficacy of your daily workflow, how to see your patients in the most efficient manner, how to get through all of your work and get home to your families. We know that clinical efficiency is very important, and as part of the early careerist workforce, we decided that we would try to get information to you in the most efficient manner. So through the CTSNet, we're happy to share with you any secrets, information, or experience. We'll start by introducing ourselves.
Hi, I'm Brendan Stiles. I'm a thoracic surgeon at New York Presbyterian Cornell.
I'm Shanda Blackman. I'm a thoracic surgeon at Mayo Clinic in Rochester.
I'm Vinay Badwar. I'm a cardiac surgeon at the West Virginia University in Morgantown.
And I'm sorry you're a cardiac surgeon, because he broke a beautiful theme here. I'm Robert Cerfolio. I'm a thoracic surgeon at University of Alabama at Birmingham.
So we'll start by asking Dr. Stiles, so what's your general workflow? How do you organize your day? Do you see patients on the same day that you operate? And what kind of support do you have?
I try not to see patients on the same day I operate. First of all, I think that's the Bavaria worlds colliding thing. I really try to separate the OR from the clinic. I think especially for patients, safety in the OR, but also for just efficiency in the clinic, that's a disaster putting those two things together. So I start the day by really having a team huddle with the residents and the nurse practitioners to get a plan for the patients. And then I try to see the patients early in the day too, because I think it's important that they know the plan.
That's good. What about you, Vinay?
So as a cardiac surgeon, as the sole person here, it's our cases are longer, it's more complicated in terms of our time commitment. And so
Wow.
this
I
whole
disagree there, but go ahead.
you do 12 cases in the morning,
Just a complicated part.
So, I do exactly as Brendan does, a team huddle in the morning, and team is the whole theme here. I think, to have your life efficient, you really have to have a great team. And anything you do to support that team becomes absolutely critical. So yes, I try not to do clinic and ORs the same day. Occasionally that has to happen for emergencies, and if you have a great team that can help support clinic or backfill. And so having great partners is really critical, and having great support people is critical, so that, as Brendan said, it's very important, I believe, as I think all of us do, to see your patient every day, both either before OR or at least afterwards. It's usually the last thing I do is to make sure I see everybody before I leave the hospital, because that patient connection is still important. So I don't want to lose that in this personal pursuit of keeping your life efficient.
Right, I think that's a good point. Dr. Cerfolio?
So I think, what is efficiency? Efficiency is maximum output with the minimum amount of waste. And it depends how you define what waste is. I think we in medicine have done a really bad job with work-life balance. The cost of a bad work-life balance is not just divorced, hurting your kids, hurting your spouse, people leave jobs, it leads to bad quality. It is an absolute disaster. So we have done a really bad job with work-life balance, and something I'm obviously interested in. So I want to maximize my time at home, my sleep. I want to maximize the ability to work out. So I don't ever round in the morning. I have my residents and fellows round in the morning, and the second I get in the car, since I have to drive to work for 12 minutes, it's a telephone call with the residents and fellows, and they tell the plan to the patients. Then we have 4 PAs on the floor. I think the people listening should find out how to bargain and to leverage your enterprise value to have the hospital pay for that, not your division or your department, but the hospital. And then I totally agree with you that having surgery and clinic on the same day is inefficient, but I operate 4 days a week, and seeing 50 to 60 patients in clinic was psychologically too hard for me after 10 years. So I now run my clinic just to 35 people on Thursdays and have a 15 patient clinic on Tuesdays. So Tuesdays, I just do 4 cases in the morning, and then I have a clinic of 15 or 20 people in the afternoon. And it is a recipe for disaster if you don't get each airplane off that tarmac on time and get all 4 cases done. And I think, just to go back to our definition, it's not just your maximum output with the minimum amount of waste in a product of lean, but there's a quality initiative to it. Because going real fast and doing sloppy work leads to bad work-life balance and bad patient relationships and bad outcomes. So we have to divide that quotient by a quality index, and it could be a whole bunch of ways to look at it. I'm getting assigned to shut up, so let's proceed.
So Brendan, what are some of the things that you do to keep that patient-doctor connection but also maintain efficiency. Specifically, the electronic health record has almost, in a way, made us put our back to the patient as we start clicking to put all of these factors in that need to be populating the electronic health record. Is there anything special that you do to keep that connection with the patient?
Well, I've sort of sacrificed personal efficiency for efficiency with the patient, and so I don't document it all while I'm talking to the patients. I just talk to them and have it out, let them talk to me, try to look at them and really communicate and be there. That means I have to close the chart either between the visits or at the end of the day, and so it leads to a lot of closing charts at night. But I think you can do a lot as you're going, and so all the important parts I'll try to write down as I go and then go back and close them later. We've built a lot of things into our EMR, and we have scribes and everything too, so that really helps tremendously. And I think also the resources angle, this should be your hospital, everybody helping you trying to get these people there because they're invaluable to us and to our time.
Right. We, at Mayo Clinic, I've started developing a series of patient education videos, and they watch the videos so that I don't end up telling them the same story over and over again about what your options are if you present with achalasia. They see the video, we come in, and then you're really more answering questions. And then we usually have mid-levels that are helping us to do that EMR part, place orders. I personally do all my own posting because I want the case to be posted correctly and perfectly. But I think those are some of the ways you can save time too.
But you can trust your team to post for you. And
You absolutely can, and half of my partners do that.
And we want to be perfect, but you also have to know to delegate something. So I let my PA post, she writes it while I'm sitting there. I don't do any writing in front of the patient, and I think scribes are too expensive. I just use my phone, which I don't have with me, but I have a Siri that dictates right into EMR. It's a 360 MAS HIPAA compliant way. I used to use a headset in my clinic, and now I just dictate. And then I don't edit the letter. The PA or the nurse or the medical student who sees the patient with me, we have 7 clinic rooms, so I run 7 rooms in the clinic, and I can be very efficient. I use the videos as well. And finally, I make the patient bring a tape recorder. Because when they ask me the same question for the second time, I go, oh no, Mr. Johnson, it's on your recorder. Go back and listen and play it for your family. And that has made me very efficient. I've been doing that for 20 years.
What about you?
So, I think, like I said earlier, using your team, I think everybody should work at the top of their skill set, at the top of their ability. And so what we do is I don't make any notes in clinic, during clinic. I sign them afterwards and add impression and plan and be very, it only takes us a few minutes to do that. And you be very specific, exactly, this is the first thing I'm going to do, the second thing. So when the case gets posted, it's posted accurately. But as everyone has said, I don't actually do any transcription during the conversation. It's all direct communication, because really that's the only time that I really spend connecting to the patient in clinic. And so it's that, a lot of the stuff in clinic, especially for our early career physicians, that's the moment where you have to create that bond. And if you miss that and you're too quick about it, then if there's a problem that happens, or your reputation, it's the faith that you have, and that connection is important. So I spend my time then, but then rounding and other things I defer completely to the top of the skill set of our team.
Great.
And it's a trust, isn't it? And if you come in an hour late, you are screwed to begin with, because you've already got one foot in the hole. And so being late to people in the clinic, and I am about 25 to 30 minutes late, we track this. No matter what I do, I seem to get late after about the first 10 or 15 patients. We got to get better. But if you come in the room late, you're telling the patient you don't value their time, and that hurts the relationship. I think the biggest mistake people make is they think they have to spend 30, 40 minutes with a patient. You can spend 2 minutes with a patient. I spend 4 minutes and 30 seconds with new patients, and the patient says on exit that Dr. Cerfolio was there for 20 minutes. Don't show this part of the video. But the point is, it's their perception of how much time you're there. If you're there just really going over the nuts and the bolts of the operation in a mechanical way, you're not connecting. But if you're there letting them know you really care about them, that you and your team do this all the time, and you're going to get a good outcome, I think you can get that connection quicker. That is efficiency. And I think with your other venues, your notebooks you give them, your daily, what happens each day in the hospital, we give them the videos. We have a video what happens on the way to the hospital, the day of surgery, a video for post-op day 1, post-op day 2. There's other educational ways to give them that information without telling them. The time you're in the clinic is to let them know that you care about them, that you love them while you're operating on them, and that there's a trust built. but we can't be late because it's hard to build the trust when you're late.
You know, so there's a slight difference in cardiac. I think there's many different ways of doing it. You know, Surf, you see, and you take care of thousands of patients. You know, in cardiac surgery, it's a focused issue, and you know, there's a life and death issue with everything we do in thoracic surgery.
Right.
In some cardiac operations, particularly if they're coming quite ill, there is a chance that they may not pull through, and that's the moment. So I have a slightly contrarian view on how I run, because
Tell us.
I spend that time, and I spend 30 minutes with the patient, sometimes 40 minutes. And that first 15 is about explaining, you know, whatever it has to do with the valve or AFib or whatever your problem is. And even though that's kind of comes out rote, they feel that I'm talking to them as a family member. And I try to do that connection, so that after the fact, if something happens, of which thankfully nothing does,
Right.
but they have that faith. And even if I'm there seeing them post-operatively for 10 seconds, because our team's already around them, then it's all good.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I mean, I try to sit down every time I interact with a patient. When we make rounds on the floor, I squat down to look at the chest tube, but I also take that opportunity to make myself lower than the patient, so that when they're talking to me, it's more intimate, they don't feel threatened, I'm not looking down on them in the bed. I mean, I think the ways that you interact with your patient are really important, and you can make a single moment twice as meaningful in the way that you interact with them. I think another way that I, in my early practice, made myself a little bit more efficient was, you know, esophageal cancer patients take a lot of time. And after you take out their esophagus and the proximal part of their stomach, and you drag their stomach up and you reconnect them, it's not like they're going to just go back out into the world and function like a regular person. They need a lot of coaching. And so I built a support group where all of my patients once a month would come, and I would link patients to one another, and they would help. They can go through specific training on CAN-CARE, teaches cancer patients to care for other cancer patients. And the patients would mentor each other, help them troubleshoot tube feeding, help them troubleshoot J-tube, you know, problems, or help them, you know, oh, you have, you're losing weight, add protein, add fiber, here are ways to, you know, make yourself not be so sick or lose weight. And the support group was probably one of the greatest things I ever did, because I actually got to follow my patients. Unlike, you know, you can't see an esophageal cancer patient every month for a year, but in a group you can, and you're always available to them.
And they take ownership, especially the caregiver. So if you operate on the husband,
And
usually
they
his
bring the
wife as the
caregiver with them to the
Correct.
support group, and actually I think I benefited more than they did.
Absolutely.
But it's a great way to, and I know cardiac surgery is different, but it might even be something that can be done there.
This is, you're creating an element of coaching,
Right.
which is very important. I know my friend here talks a lot
He doesn't
about
know
coaching.
anything about coaching.
Nothing at all, no.
I don't, but I dabble.
So, no, I think that's wonderful. I think that's definitely applicable to cardiac surgery. So,
Yeah.
And, you know, I think what you're saying about how you interact with patients, some of our early career folks, when you're running around as a resident and then you're new
It's
in
overwhelming.
practice, well, you don't, sometimes you don't actually know how to do that. And you know what, at the core, it's how you're brought up and how you are as a person. And if that was your family member, how would you act? And, you know, I think, you know, bending down, like you said, sitting on the bed for 2 seconds and touching them.
Touching.
Touching,
them.
yeah.
There's
and
good
sitting on
data.
the
There's
bed.
good data for that.
You know, that, even if it's 30 seconds, they feel you've been there for an hour.
I think
All
it's
the time.
nice to be to show that you care,
It is.
and to really try to connect with your patient in a way that is normal for you. I mean, if you're not a hugger, it's probably not a good idea, but I think it's important to be real with your patient.
It means a lot to the patients, and you can't fake it. Patients know if you really care. You can't fake it, and almost all of us really care. But when you become 30, 40, 50, and you're on your 18,000 case, I always tell the resident and the intern when we walk in the room, okay, this is the 44th patient today in clinic. It's their only time they have cancer. For them, it's their one and only time they see you. You've got to be tough in the fourth quarter. I always hold up, you know, if you're doing our 8th or 9th or 10th case, they always say fourth quarter, this is why we beat the other teams, or the last 10 patients in clinic, okay, we're entering the fourth quarter, hold up 4 fingers, this is where we're going to be great. You can't get tired.
And you know, this is the whole point of this conversation, right? It's about career efficiency, clinical efficiency, and that's a really important point. So it's the end of the day, it's 6 o'clock, and your kids are getting ready for, if you're, depending on how.
Hopefully
old
it's
the kids
4
are.
o'clock, and we're not in clinic past 4, but go ahead.
But, you know, even if it's rounding.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
in clinic.
Yeah.
That's the moment that you have with your patient. And so you can't be rushed, or they feel that you're rushed. So these types of, you know, ways of connecting helps you get through the day and get you home for your family.
Yeah.
What do you guys think, though? People watching, some of the younger surgeons may say, well, it's easy for these guys to be efficient. They've got all the resources. The institution's giving them everything.
Right.
I find it's harder for young surgeons who are starting out. They don't have block OR time. They don't have as block clinic time.
Nobody in
How do
clinic
you-
to help them.
How do you mature those people and ensure that they can be efficient?
So I would say, starting out in a practice where I didn't have block time, it would be important to make the most of every second. We call it found time, right? So if you're waiting for a case to go, one of the biggest mistakes I made in my first year of practice is I would sit on that little bench outside the OR, like, when is my case gonna go? And I think that was
It's
a
an
really,
easy trap to get into,
and you
yeah.
get really frustrated. And I even contacted the administration. I said, you need to put some stair climbers or some ellipticals outside here, because these surgeons are spinning out of control and they need to get rid of that energy. But I think
How
one
about a
of the
massage therapist? But go ahead.
no, yeah, okay. So,
No, I'm serious. There's data for that.
yeah.
Go ahead.
But I think one of the ways that I started to deal with that extra time in a more meaningful manner, actually, I hate to say it, but I took it from you, and I had them put a desk out there with a computer, and I turned it into my little office, and I would go into that little spot, and I would review a paper. I would, answer email. I would do my, clinic work. I would get all my jobs done while I was waiting. There's never a time where I'm just kind of sitting
Right.
and doing nothing and being frustrated. So I'd say for the early career people, the most you can do is if you find yourself, if you have the luxury of the time to complain, well, that's your problem. You need to quit complaining and go find something to do.
You know, we're all busy cardiothoracic surgeons, and if you ever have a gap in your day, if you want to get home to see your family at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 4 o'clock, then you make every moment count. And part of the thing we haven't talked about is communicating to the referring doctors. Whenever I have
That's
a
very
second,
important.
whenever I have a second, everything is on my cell phone. I text them information in a HIPAA compliant, secure way, so they are connected to what's happened to the patients. Some of the other things is, how do you communicate to docs? And if you're busy, as you get busier in young careers, there's several ways of doing so also. Is that, for example, what I use Outlook, and I know what the case is, and I have my assistant put in my note embedded in Outlook. So when I pull up on my phone the details of the plan of the patient, because sometimes if you're busy and you don't remember the nuances of each patient, then it's all right there, along with the referring doctor's phone number. And my assistant will call them ahead of time in the office saying, at this time, you're going to get a phone call from Dr. Badwar. What's the best way of contacting you? And then, we come out of the OR, pick up the phone, call, and the physician feels connected, but that keeps your time efficient.
I'm
So-
sending you my patients.
So a couple of things. I think that's great. I think I'd rather have a text than a phone call. So about 7, we used to send faxes. That's how old I am. My post-op day 1, there was 0.
You are
post-op
very
day-
old.
Yeah, but I'm actually younger than you, but we'll let that go first. Don't cut that out. So we just send text, and I don't do it. My PAs on the floor do it. They send a text to the referrals. Lobectomy done yesterday, doing all real short, real cryptic. Doctors love that. They don't want to note, they don't want to call, they want to read this when they want to read it. So I think text is great. The other thing I wanted to be granular about is going to the clinic yourself. So for young people who are going to the clinic, they don't have 4 PAs, like I only have 2 in the clinic. Medical students, fellows are by themselves. I did it for 3 years. Everyone forgot I started with nothing. So I wasn't going through a million films and being inefficient. I said, if you're going to come to my clinic, you're going to get a CAT scan, a PET scan, and PFTs if you have a resectable lung nodule. My secretaries in the office, I taught them how to do that. So when they came, I had a report of a CT, a report of a PET, PFTs, and a stress test if they smoked, because my secretaries had to do it at home or our institution to get the resource value and enterprise value. Made my clinic incredibly efficient. And if they had a liver nodule, it got biopsied before I saw them. So I wasn't in the room for 30 minutes telling somebody, I think you got stage 4 cancer. You connect, you lose emotional, you only have so much emotional state in your body. If you're in the room telling people you're just meeting they got stage 4 cancer for the first time, you can't spend 4 minutes there. I don't want to meet that patient. No offense. I want the oncologist to spend the emotional value. I'll talk to the people that I want to see and up the efficiency of my clinic to 60, 70% resection rate for new patients instead of where it was when I first started at 30. So there's really granular ways for them to do this without help in the clinic.
Let me say, so I think when you're SIRF, everybody's probably happy to get a text from you. They probably think it's the greatest thing. But I think when you're starting out as a young surgeon, you should pick up the phone and you should call the referring. You should probably call the primary doctor. Especially, I think, if you're in a new environment, a competitive environment where you don't know people. It's a
Do you
great
think
way.
they want to get interrupted in their day and take a call?
I think that they don't mind. And if they're short, then it's
I don't
short and
mind.
you haven't lost anything.
But I think things are evolving.
Yeah.
Especially the, our early career folks will actually have early career referring docs.
Yeah, I think that
Very
that's true.
oftenly. So
It depends on who your
texting,
referral
yeah, I
is.
think texting works.
For sure.
I text.
For sure. But if it's a new person, pick up the phone and introduce yourself, say who you are, look them up before you go, see if there's any connections, make
a great
that
way
personal
to learn.
connection.
So I think in summary, you've seen there's a diverse way to manage your practice among thoracic and cardiac surgeons. Probably some common themes that you saw today is, in spite of the fact that we were supposed to be talking about efficiency, one of the most common things that we talked about was connecting with your patient and being efficient in one part of your day and then really making the most of your time when it really does count. And that's coming from a lot of experience in this room, especially the elderly Dr. Serfolio. So thank you for your time.
jealous.
It's been a great chance to chat with these experts. I know I've learned a lot. I'm taking it back to my practice. Have a great day.